Welcome to I Like Batteries, the show where we explore the world of batteries. I'm Jeff Lynch.
And I'm Mike Muldoon. Good evening, Jeff Lynch.
Good evening, Mike. It's another evening.
Yeah, it is. That's how this happened to roll. I mean, it's also because we're hitting this time of year where we're getting the lowest amount of daylight for the day. Not the shortest day, because the day is actually the same length. But no matter what happens, it's still exciting because I love having interviews, don't you?
I love having interviews, yes.
Well, let's get to the second half of our interview with Jill. Only thing you would use. But the reality is, in some cases, that's not the right application of chemical or even pack size because of what you're trying to do in terms of, a higher voltage or different things. So talk to us a little bit more about that and what you're seeing and maybe what's the change in trend.
I mean, there's so many applications of batteries that it's hard to say where it's trending besides it's diversifying. So the battery in your cell phone is different than the battery in your laptop, is different than the battery in your car, different than your battery in your lawn, your snowblower you're talking about earlier. I was mowing my lawn earlier today with a battery, right? All of these are designed specifically. Now, lithium ion is pretty pervasive in a lot of these consumer applications and electric vehicles. We're starting to see sodium ion batteries come out in electric vehicle stationary storage. That supply chain is what's kind of lagging there, and it doesn't last as long as a lithium ion battery yet. We're in the early days of that technology. That could change in the long run for sure. And then you even have like primary batteries versus secondary batteries. Primary are just you discharge them like your AAA battery, or you have rechargeable batteries, secondary batteries. So, and the AA batteries, those are in our remotes, and that's what we're used to thinking of when we think of a battery. So as far as like the trends go, it's all about increasing those different levers of performance, and depending on the application and what somebody can pay for. Like when I was a battery scientist, I wanted to try putting like silver nanoparticles in my battery, because why not? That would be fun. What would it do? But no one's going to pay to have silver nanoparticles in their battery unless maybe it's like a really interesting military application. They tend to have deep pockets, or some billionaire wants to do hypersonic travel to space, wants to design his dream ship. So there's so many levers, and it's hard for me to just summarize it in just a couple sentences. But I would say, like, if you just Google performance characteristics of batteries and those different categories, there's so much to play with within that, but there's always going to be trade-offs.
Cool. Well, we talk about EVs a lot on the show. And just if you were going to, I think it was Toyota was talking about having, wasn't it, Mike, the solid state batteries in their EVs?
Yes.
So if you had to explain to a layperson, as it were, a non-battery geek like the three of us, like what a solid state battery is, how would you, like, opportunity to educate our listeners, like how would you explain a solid state battery relative to a regular battery?
Yeah. A regular battery, lithium ion battery, has a liquid inside of it, and in a quote unquote solid state battery, which I won't get into that. There's controversy about that terminology, but for a solid state battery, instead of the liquid, that material is a solid, and that's it. So, yeah.
It's the semi-solid state batteries that are being touted as solid state batteries that are actually the interesting ones that you see out in the industry, especially people launching it. Certain companies in Amazon and things, you dig deeper into what they are, and it's like, well, that's really not a solid state battery that's there. And I do think you're going to see that hit the consumer level. You're going to see that hit whether it's an EV, whether it's home energy storage and things. But you did bring up a really good point, I think, in your previous discussion. You said it's the application of different batteries for different applications, and we've seen that even in today's modern EVs. I mean, they've got a lead acid battery in there that's essentially the first battery to go in order to be able to connect the pack so that you can actually get your EV to start with the lithium ion battery. Now you're starting to see some lithium ion batteries that are in there that are standard batteries. But I think it's that dependency in the actual chain of application that you're going to have different types of batteries because maybe you don't need as many charge cycles for that particular energy chemistry in your application, but then you need something that has more charge cycles, like in lithium iron phosphate battery. So which part of the industry you think right now is drawing the most attention? Is it the EV part? Is it more of the energy storage in terms of whole house? Is it, even data centers that are starting to look at it more for AI purposes and things? Like, where do you see the most, if you were to look at the industry right now in terms of your exploration, what's drawing the most battery interest? Which kind of sector?
When it comes to looking at the interest, like the topic of the day, it's mostly around data centers, defense, and energy storage systems for like grid scale applications, stationary storage. And that's not to say that there's no more electric vehicles. It's just not very popular with this administration. And so a lot of the companies are searching for investment and funding off of these more emerging spaces, right? So they're focusing their messaging on, hey, we can provide batteries to data centers because, the Amazons and the Microsofts are buying up batteries for their data center build out. So it's those kind of expanding industries that are front of mind right now. But that's not to say that, we still are using our power tools and we still have our cell phones and we still have, all these. I have this like health ring tracker that has a battery in it now. They're everywhere. So even our singing birthday cards, those birthday cards that sing to you, that's a lithium ion battery. So they're there. Oh, yeah. They're just not as popular or talked about.
No, it's very true. I think I was talking with somebody the other day and like, oh, well, you don't see him as much in different things. I was like, I said, I'm going to differ with you on that. I said, you've seen how many drone applications are out there in terms of the defense industry. I was like, I just want to let you know, those are not usually gas powered. When we look at some of those things, and they're just laughing like,
not usually.
I was like, not usually. I was like, the whole exhaust thing doesn't do much for the stealth application of these things. And like, I never thought of that. I was like, yeah. So, and it can't weigh a lot and it can't have these things and it can't produce a lot of heat because I said that signature is seen with certain types of things. So, and I don't think your public sector is thinking about that. There's a sub segment that's looking specifically at that in terms of the defense industry, or even we were just talking, I think a couple of weeks ago on the show about how you're starting to see cattle being able to bring. We say cattle, just I'm sure it's CATL versus like cattle in terms of the bovine that are being able to cross the Atlantic, so to speak, in a ship and being able to have that application. So, I mean, batteries, we're going to continue to see that. Even there's a fair amount of them that are using submarines that are kind of floating around, or maybe up in Portsmouth here near us, that are being repaired and whatnot. And having to take those packs out of older systems and replace those with newer technology is also an important thing, because you have to upgrade it. You're not just going to take this submarine and say, well, we're just going to trash it and just dump it in the ocean. It's like, no, we need to have a bunch of batteries that are there that we need to be able to use. Yes, it's most of the time it's nuclear, but you're having to recharge those in some way, shape, or form. And they need to be pretty stable, because having a fire that deep is not good for things, for sure.
And you're bringing up a really very hot topic that I think a lot of people overlook: battery safety and logistics. When you have to transport a battery at end of life and you're maybe not sure how safe it is, how do you make sure that it's not going to like catch fire in transport, or, just the safety risk of somebody handling that at end of life? And more we're seeing legislation actually coming in for extended producer responsibility. So car companies are now having to take responsibility for those in like New Jersey. And that requires so much public education for the shops, mechanic shops. Sorry, I'm not the servicing centers there. Maybe that's the right term. And then how do you treat a battery that's on an island, where you then have to put them on a boat and take them across an ocean somewhere, right? So safety is such a interesting area right now in that logistics picture. So yes, I hear what you're saying completely.
Yeah. Well, I think the safety one is because it makes the news, right? So it makes the news anytime anybody in New York has a scooter or an e-bike that catches fire and there's a problem, right? That's there. And so that makes the news. So people are like, well, let's put a broad-based statement. Lithium-ion batteries are unsafe. It's like, okay, let's just pause here. You know,
we got to compare.
Right. I understand. Look
at the fossil fuel industry before you. I'm just saying this. I hear this so much, and I'm like you can't just take batteries in a vacuum as like, oh, but we're mining. Oh, but they catch fire. It's like, but they compare them to what we're currently doing, and you'll see how much better they are in so many different aspects. So I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. No, and I think there are things that happen, right? And sometimes it is an education piece, like, because people are not, there's some signs at times that you probably should recharge that battery, right? That people need to understand, like, it's telling you something. And I think there's better protection circuitry. And then you of course you have people like Sean's company who are able to say, hey, we can identify if a thermal runaway is happening. And also even educating people on, like, what does it mean when a thermal runaway happens? Like, how does that occur? So I guess maybe we'll go there so you can help people understand, you know, that this isn't happening. So if you had to explain that to somebody, you know, on the show, what would you say in terms of what happens when batteries go bad, I guess I would say, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, I would say if you know the fire triangle, you need 3 ingredients for a fire. Well, they're all inside of a battery. And so when a battery gets too hot, its components, basically a key one that can melt, and that could cause a short circuit. And then that heat generation basically just keeps going, keeps getting hotter because it's a chemical reaction that's happening, and it runs away.
And some very fast it runs away. It has those things.
Very fast.
And you know, some of the reasons for that. Yeah, exactly.
Let it burn.
Well, that's the problem, right? And I think is that you know, putting it out is a difficult problem, right? You know, in terms of that, we actually had a firefighter on the show who talked about that and what they do and how they have to do that. And we were saying how in Massachusetts, the plates are required that say EV on them. Right, because the reality is today, if you look at a vehicle, it'd be hard to tell. You used to be able to kind of tell if it was an EV before because they just look different, right? But today, you could look at the same vehicle, unless the plate said EV or there's some type of marker on that vehicle, you don't know that that car has a battery or a pack. And so that's important for, you know, first responders who respond to that to know that, hey, we can't approach this vehicle the same way we would approach, say, a regular ICE vehicle, right? In terms of being able to put this out. And I think that's important down the road, safety wise, when these things happen. They will continue to happen no matter what we do in terms of the future.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say, you know, inside the industry, we are well aware of these issues, and there are a lot of smart people who are working on putting in the right kinds of policies, making the kinds of technologies that help mitigate this. We need to look to places like China to learn from what they're doing there. Like, they're rebuilding parking structures that actually are safe for electric vehicle fires and can contain them, right? It's built into the infrastructure. So it's really interesting, you know, taking a holistic approach to safety is definitely so important. And I'm the director of research and programming at NatBat International, which is the leading trade association in the battery industry. And there are a lot of conversations around battery safety and these topics there. So it's really exciting to see that happening in real time. Like, that's where we're at right now.
Definitely, for sure. And I think that the more we get that out to the public so they can understand that the reason and the need for that, right? So the need to be able to look at this and say, batteries are not going away. They're going to be here. They're going to continue to grow more and more. We have to respond to that in an effective manner in terms of that, whether it's we build buildings that can maintain this effectively, or we just even build, you know, charging stations that have the right safety features to be able to make sure that some things don't happen versus some of the ones we have today that are kind of all over the place. It's kind of the wild, wild west, for lack of a better word, in terms of charging stations that are out there at times. So that can be something. But so I guess as we talk about all these things and we have these challenges that are out there, what do you think's the future looks like for batteries? What's the next 5-10 years look like in terms of where things are going to go? If you could kind of predict, if you could hop in a time machine, let's just say, potentially, and put a date in, like we said, and be able to move into the future and see that, what would it look like?
Who's in office?
Well, that Ronald Reagan. No, I'm sorry. I just had to go with that one from
wrong direction, Mike. Wrong direction.
The actor. Sorry, the other one. The other. Well, you could say it's an actor right now, but given the fact he did have his own show for a while and things like that. But yeah, we don't know. I guess I'd say if we look at where the trends are going, what do you see in terms of the piece?
Yeah, I'm just joking because we've seen so much of the progress, right, in the industry really swing either way based on who's in office. So really, policy is such an important part of creating this clean energy future, right? Creating this battery future. And I would say in 10 years, I think we are going to get to a point where probably China's still dominant, but the US maybe has figured out how to have a supply chain that works for us. It's going to look different. And I think using the word, how do we compete with China is not the right thing to say, right? Every location, like I said, it's very local. Every location has its own energy needs. And I think we're getting smarter about how to look at our energy challenges more locally and find solutions that match that local energy landscape and environment. Batteries are only going to continue to grow, like you said. They're not going away. It's booming still. And so it's just, I'm really excited for the technology we haven't even thought up yet. That's going to be coming out because of advancements, not just in the chemistries, but in the manufacturing, in the commercialization. And I could see, there's so many universities building these pilot lines. I think that's going to really catalyze a lot of workforce development and a lot of innovation in the space.
No, I agree. I think you're right. The innovation is going to be there. And honestly, I would say 5-10 years ago, we didn't have the ability to leverage AI to be able to, at the scale we have today, to honestly be able to help us, right? And that's it's somewhat of a symbiotic partnership, ironically, in some ways. I said is that oftentimes Jeff and I were joking. I was like, I've sat there and Gemini and I have had many conversations about this in industry and asked it to extrapolate and look at things and try and run different models because I think the ability to hypothesize what the future will bring is going to be accelerated. And I think we'll continue to see more consumers and everyday users start to grow. And I think that may push it, no matter what kind of the administration that's there, right? I think you're going to start to see certain things happen. I know there's certain states that are out there just in the United States, like we're not going to have any ICE vehicles, new ICE vehicles at a certain time. Now, whether that's going to come to fruition or not in the next X amount of years, but there are different countries that are out there who are making that same commitment that I think are going to do that. So you're going to see the demand continue to grow, and who's going to meet the demand? Well, if China's out there and China's the one sees the demand, they're going to try and meet the demand. That's purely what's going to happen. And I think we just just need to continue to be innovative and I wouldn't say compete. I think the reality is, as I said, we're all one planet here trying to be able to do our best. I think that no matter what, we're all brothers and sisters of this planet until we decide to leave and colonize other ones, which I don't know when that's going to happen. But I think that'll continue to happen. And we'll, no matter what, even if we do colonize those other ones, it'll still be somewhat reliant on batteries till we get something up and running. But
which planet do you want to move to?
I'm fine with this one. I actually think we're borrowing this one from future generations. I think we just need to be able to do a little bit better in terms of taking care of it. But that's my own little piece. So at least I try and do mine by my solar panels and batteries and making sure we keep the show running off batteries as long as we can. So I'm not utilizing the grid as as much. So
Nice.
we've made that kind of commitment as a show. So if we have a battery podcast, we should be batteries. All my lights in the studio here are running off batteries right now. So that's what we try and do. So walk the walk.
Wow, that's so cool.
So,
wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I want to get to the alternate universe that we're experiencing now. Like, I want to get back to the other one.
Yeah. Not the one that's run by lizard overlords like we currently have, right?
Right.
Yes. So those type of things. So what's your thing with all these years to do? What's the most surprising thing? I guess I would say that you've kind of come upon that's, as you've kind of seen different things. What would you say that is?
I think it's that nobody knows what's going on fully. No one's in charge. When you're a young upcomer in an industry, you look for, okay, who's steering the ship here? Who's the one who's making the good decisions? And I would say I've come to realize that there are a lot of smart people, a lot of passionate people, a lot of driven people. But it really takes a diverse collection of people's thoughts and backgrounds and everything to come together to really move the needle forward in meaningful ways. And it's not just one person. I think it surprised me how much opportunity there is to contribute in this industry. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. I think we've gotten a little bit of that just by clearly seeing like all the interviews we had over the time, as well as what I like to be able to see is we've interviewed somebody and then see where they are today. If we look at Scott Case and we look at that company we had a recurrent report. I mean, he didn't have a recurrent report out at all at that time in terms of any vehicles that were there. And then all of a sudden now you look on cars.com and almost every EV that's out there has a recurrent report, right? Because of just looking at and helping the consumer understand like, oh, this is how much range I might get in 5 years versus today. And this is the battery score for this battery that's in my vehicle. So I think there's just innovations that'll continue to happen. And you'll have people that'll drive it forward, so to speak, because they have an idea and they'll try and push it and kind of make it happen. So it should be interesting, but for sure. So definitely we're excited to have you out there in terms of every day pushing the batteries forward, because it's people like you that are actually helping to shape the industry a little bit, or at least educate people for sure. So if people wanted to reach out and kind of find out more from you, how could they do that?
Honestly, just Google my name, Jill Pestana, and I'm everywhere. So I'm on all these social platforms. You mentioned my YouTube channel, Across the Universe. If you want to check out resources for learning about batteries, go to batterycourses.com.
Sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. Hopefully you stay fully charged, or at least 80%.
Thank you guys so much. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much.